This is the second take on the side imaging comparison between the old 3-in-1 and the new HD transducer. Instead of running two boats this time, I'm running one boat, and what I did is I set up dual camera mounts on my units. The problem is that I got a lot of vibration on that, so what I ended up doing is a program called Reefmaster. And so you can see that this is the transducer setup. This is the port side, this is the old one. The one on the starboard side is a new fish reveal transducer. But in the bottom, you can see how the downscan scrolling through, the side scan scrolling through. And on the left-hand side there, you can see the boat positioning. So hopefully this one will be a little bit better. This is our first area, which is the old bridge area. Okay, the first thing we got to do is set up the sonar logging. And the way you do that is you hit the Pages button, go to Settings, go over to the Sonar panel, okay? And then what you'll see is the setup. What we're going to do is we're going to record to an SD card, micro SD card, and we're going to do that on both units. And so if you show your sonar files, it doesn't show it obviously. So we're going to set this logging up. Now we've got logging set up on both screens. If you look, you can't see it, but there's a little red light flashing on both of these screens, and what that's doing is letting me know that everything is working right. Okay. So the next thing I need to do is to verify the settings on these units. Okay, I pop the menu up, and you can see both of them are running their higher frequency. The left unit is the HD transducer, which is running basically a megahertz chirp, and the other one's running 800 kilohertz. So once we've done that, now we can sit there and verify that yes, indeed, everything's going well. You can see there's a little bit of a difference in the details from here. So as we go along, I'll occasionally throw in some screenshots, and those screenshots will give you the ability, you can actually stop the video, look at the screenshot, and see if that's really what you want to do. So now I've switched over to Reefmaster. And now we've got rid of the glare, so you don't have to look at me being in the ghosting shadow there. So. I've turned fish reveal off on the left unit, which is this unit here. So fish reveal is turned off. Okay, we're coming up on our first screenshot. You'll hear the little shutter click. That's kind of an indicator. Always on the left-hand screen will be the fish reveal or the HD transducer, and on the right one will be the old 3-in-1. So just remember that. Keep consistent. So as we come back around to the other side of the bridge here, what you'll notice is that I've always have the range at 100 feet on both units, and that's to keep it consistent to see the details out further away. What I did later on, when we get to area number 4, I changed that scale to 200 feet on the high frequency and 300 feet on the low frequency. I'm going to probably be running some more tests later on to see what the real true good range is, but at least this gives you an idea of what you can see in normal usage range. Okay, here we're switching frequencies to 455 kilohertz on both transducers, and you see the color intensity greatly increased. That's just an artifact of the lower frequency versus the higher frequency. And there's a little bit of shadow ghosting in the water column, but that's probably due to we had a lot of suspended particles in the water, and it was getting fairly cold too as well. But you can get an idea on what the real difference is in the details here. You'll notice there's a heavy bar in both of the screens here. what happens is as I'm turning the boat to get back into position, the way the transducers are moving and the water's moving around those transducers creates that water column effect. So basically just ignore that type of stuff, but what you're really looking for is the bottom itself, and you can see the bottom detail is pretty much there. So here's the bridge coming back into view, but on the right hand side. You can see that we've got it sitting on both sides here. So we've got some on the left, some on the right, but at least it gives you an idea of what it really looks like. If you've ever taken off out of the Messina ramp area and kind of cut the corner to the left a little bit tight, you'll come over this little grassy point here, and it's a little freaky at times, especially when you're trying to get, do 50 miles get away from Messina here. But this is what it looks like if you go over slowly and just keep an eye on things. It's pretty much, this area has some very low grass because, again, the grass was dying. This is it was actually pretty close to November at that point, but there you can see the grass starting to pop up pretty good. One thing you might want to notice is that in the 800 kilohertz frequency, which is the old 3-in-1 transducer, you notice there's a heavy whitish light band on both sides, whereas in the new HD transducer I don't get that, and I got that same thing on the 3-in-1 when I had it on the starboard side, so position port starboard really doesn't matter, but it looks like that the new HD transducer will actually give you crisper detail and better detail right at the water bottom, at the intersection where you're actually scanning. So if you look, like I say, on the 800 kilohertz, you see that little band there is roughly, it looks like it pops up at an edge, but it really doesn't. Also, you'll notice that the megahertz side, the left side there, actually gave you a little bit more detail. However, this screenshot shows quite the opposite. So now we're going to switch frequencies again, back on this again, and we're just going to run back through, try to make the same path again. Hopefully with any luck we'll see that. But here you can see the grass bed hanging on the right, and a little bit as we're moving into the hump itself. So let's just watch this. Here's a really good side view of that grass field. We're basically sitting pretty much in the middle of it, and we're about ready to start dropping off a little bit into the deep. But you can see the way the grass is. Again, this is a low grass. It appears, at least on downscan, it was maybe 2-3 feet tall, but it's a lot of current in this place, so you can see where it's kind of wavy, and that's because of the river current. This is a mid-river hump, and what it is really there's not a whole lot of features on top of it, But what I was more interested in how the edges look coming out of the deeper water up into the shallower, and the shallower in this case is maybe 10-15 feet tall or depth wise. But you can see pretty much we're getting, there's a few scattered rocks there and things like that, but really the bottom here on the St. Lawrence River is generally a lot of rocks. Here we've got a little bit of what actually to me looks like an old road bed when the place was flooded. And you can see a little bit of an old tower there in the image. And now we're going to switch frequencies and run back through this hump again. Again, not a whole lot to it other than, you know, that old road bed that's sitting in there. This is probably the most interesting area, other than, of course, that old blown-up bridge back at the ramp there. But this area here appears to be an underwater basically sunken island. It's near one of the dams down there, but it's got a lot of interesting features, old towers, a pile of logs and stuff. You'll see that in some of the images here. But again, worth noting, you notice that the 800 kilohertz stuff has that heavy light band near the edges, whereas the new HD transducer doesn't. So you're getting a lot crisper images at the water depth. You see a little bit of streaking, but again, not too worried about streaking. Sometimes if you're not doing your speeds consistent, I was running anywhere between 2.5 to 4 miles an hour during these tests. So you can see this is some of the old pieces that are still sitting there. Those look like old towers. And whether or not they're bridge supports or apparently they do look like bridge supports to me, but basically it's been torn down because you can see the old road bed adjacent to that.
Here it
is. So now we switch to our low frequency, which is 455 kilohertz on both bands. And we're seeing some of those towers there. And so the towers are on our right hand side. You can see they have casting a pretty good shadow, so they're pretty tall. And then on the left hand side you can see where we got like a little rocky point there, but basically goes into a lot of extra detail on the rocks. Okay, here's some of those trees I mentioned earlier on the left-hand side there. They're basically just piles of trees that apparently were cut down and left down at the bottom of the river before they flooded the thing. And you can also see that little dip there that's rolling off the screen now is part of the old road beds that were down there. And looking at the detail difference, I can see a little bit more detail in the HD transducer versus the old 3-in-1 transducer. However, there seems to be a little bit more detail in some of the big shadows on the right hand side. But on the left hand side, you'll see on the HD, you really don't see that one line that's horizontal across on the old 3-in-1. It's a lot clearer detail. And even if you look at the holes there and some of the rock piles look a little bit crisper. And I believe that's due to the fact that it's using a chirp mode for the transducer. Okay, Okay, so we're coming back up on those towers again, and you can see it's just slightly different perspective. We'll have a screenshot coming up as well pretty soon, so you can get a little bit crisper image. Again, if you want to stop the video, look at that image, the two images, compare them side by side. It has the scales, has the depths on it, has the water temperature, has everything you're looking for to basically do a good comparison. So here's that side by side. Again, these are very, very tall features. Be pretty easy to take a measuring, actually get the exact height of that. So we're coming back around to those logs. You can see they're starting to show up on the right hand side there. Yeah, one difference in me running it with both units displaying the same is I don't have a map, so I'm just kind of guesstimating about making a return path. I was trying to use landmarks in the distance to drive towards those, but sometimes getting a start position was a little bit off. But other than that, you know, I think I duplicated the paths pretty decently. Now, one thing that should be noticed is that I mentioned it very early on, is the fish reveal is actually turned off, and that would be one major advantage of the new HD fish reveal transducer. You can then see the fish on side scan like you can right now on your down scan on the old 3-in-1, and you can also do that as well on the HD. But the disadvantage is that the fish reveal has to go through a 3100 box. When you go to your bow, you generally put your units on standby. The problem is that if you put all the units on standby on the console, it doesn't put the 3100 box on standby. So that creates a noise issue, and I'll talk about that in another video I'll be doing soon, assuming it'll ever warm up enough so I can go do it. Okay, this is the last area, which is a rocky point. So it's quite a few miles away from Messina, but we decided to check it out anyway. Unfortunately, what I did is I forgot to put bring the SD cards with me to put it in the unit, so we have to do these screens here. And so what you can do is you'll probably get a little nauseous watching this thing, but here's part of an old roadbed there. But I tried to, again, this is that setup I showed earlier, and this is why I ended up logging everything and running the fish reveal. But I wanted to I'll let you see what it really looks like if you're sitting there running and watching the screens. It looks a little different than the fish reveal, I'm sorry, the Reefmaster stuff. But on the other hand, it's what you really truly see. Here what I'm doing is I'm double checking the parameters, make sure it's all set up right. And unfortunately, if I had one screen zoomed in properly, it would mask the other screen. This one, the left screen, the HD screen, is masked on the left side. What I was more interested in was that detail on those scattered rock piles right there. And you can see it's pretty good on both sets. Again, there's that white line at the depth line on the old 3-in-1. So again, some of these featureless points and stuff, scattered rocks, sometimes they will hold fish. Like for example, if you idle around enough, there's a good chance you're going to find like an old roadbed or something. Those create really good current breaks. Again, St. Lawrence River at times moves quite a distance, a lot of water. So here I'm switching frequencies over to 455, and so you notice the screen got a lot brighter. Okay, again, an artifact of frequency change. So we're going to go through and do everything here. So you can see I still in this situation I had the range down at 100. It would have been nice if I had remembered to let it say set up and run to maybe 300 or 400 feet and see how much it would actually do, because we're really pretty shallow here. It's maybe 15, 20, 25 feet deep, and it'd really be good to see what the range throw is on that. Well, we're coming back in. Hopefully you got enough ideas on what the differences are. These are pictures of the old roadbed taken first thing without the dual setup going on. And if you pause on those two images, you'll see it's a really crisp detail. But basically my feeling is that I'm still undecided on which one I'm going to keep. So I think what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to do a permanent mount of the old 3-in-1 on my port side, and then run both units. There seems to be some advantages and disadvantages to both transducers, but again, I've given you enough data, I hope, so you can at least make an informed decision, because again, if you have the old units, it is a major cost difference. So I appreciate you guys watching. If you like this video, let me know by clicking on the like button. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe.